Kia ora team, Marcus here, and today I want to talk to you about your future. You see, if there's one thing that I know about success, it's that the clearer you are on what it is you want to achieve, the more likely you are to achieve it. In a moment, I'm going to share with you a model by a guy called Simon Bowen, which I've adapted to this current COVID-19 situation. What this model is going to do, it's going to give you perspective on the 4 different futures facing you and your business, and what you need to do in order to adjust your trajectory to something that's more in line with your hopes for the future. So here we go. So picture time on a continuum, and right now we're all in the same place, and at some point in the future this whole situation will resolve and there'll be a new normal. Now we don't know how long that's going to take, but I'm just going to use 12 to 18 months as an example. Now, before we reach that point, there's this invisible line which we all must cross, and that is what's called the survival line. Again, we don't know where that is, but for argument's sake, I'm going to say 90 days. Now, there's 4 futures that we all have the option of choosing in the long term, and they range from ideal through to okay, and then below the point, a poor outcome, or finally a crisis. Now, obviously, each of those categories are going to look differently for you as an individual. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of ideas here that to guide your thinking on. So for me, an ideal scenario is you come out of this making more profit than you would have 12 to 18 months ago, with a business that is more systemized than it was before and less dependent on you, a team that's more engaged and inspired, and you personally have built more habits and skills that will support your growth and your company's growth in the long term. An okay scenario is you've ripped through cash reserve, but you haven't had to borrow, so you come out net zero gain in terms of your profit. Your team's okay, you've hopefully retained everyone, and your skills, well, you've picked up a few habits and skills along the way, and maybe you've implemented 1 or 2 more systems along that process. A poor result for me is you've come out of this with more debt and less cash. You've probably dropped 1 or 2 staff. You haven't really developed any skills or habits personally. And a crisis scenario is where you've actually had to liquidate the business. You've had to wrap it up because of the amount of debt and pressure it's creating for you. So if we imagine performance and mapping up performance with these outcomes, the thing that we know about performance is that performance is not linear, it's exponential. So performance often looks like not too different in the early days, and then all of a sudden it hooks off and it accelerates toward that outcome. And that certainly is true above the line as well. When we're looking at an ideal scenario, we don't necessarily see a hell of a lot initially, but then we accelerate rapidly toward the end of that curve, and we end up 10 years ahead of our competitors. So if we put a number against each of these lines, I want to ask you a question. Which of those 4 futures do you choose? Secondly, which of those lines are you on currently? What's your trajectory currently? Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that you say, Marcus, I think right now I'm on line number 3. And I want to get to number 1. Now, the thing is that in 12 to 18 months, the gap between level 3 and line 1 is really significant. In fact, it's probably irrecoverable. And that's, to use the term of my good friend Jack Kelleher, that is the 10-year gap. That's the 10-year gap between you and your competitors if they follow the poor trajectory and you chase the ideal scenario. But back to you. If you'd say, I'm on line 3 and I want to get to 1 in 12 to 18 months, that gap is just too far to bridge. However, if we come back to the present moment and we work with you to implement a few things right away, and we stack up those changes week on week on week, that decision you made today gets you much greater results and much faster acceleration in the long term. So, which line do you choose? And how long are you going to wait before you jump lines? Now, as your coach, my job is to help you accelerate the trajectory of the line you're already on, or to help you jump lines. So in the next week, I'll be telling you more about a program that I've designed exactly for this COVID situation to help you do that. But in the meantime, consider that question. What line am I on? What line do I want to be on? And how long am I going to wait? Hope that's been helpful and gives you some clarity of thought around your future team. And I'll talk with you all very soon.